Shedeur's rising. Stefanski's reputation is crumbling. But what happens next in Atlanta? The NFL is watching closely.
On the National Football League, bro. Last year when things was transpiring, everybody seen it. You could not cut on your TV and not see Kevin Stefanski sabotaging Shedeur. It was making New York Post, ABC News, NBC, ESPN, social media, you name it. Everybody and their mama was talking about the buffoonery Kevin Stefanski was doing in regards to Shedeur Sanders. Well, it looked like that.
I had enough of this dude. I'd have had enough of this dude, Kevin Stefanski, lying like we don't have two eyes that can see. We saw what you did with Shedeur Sanders. You know, this man got the job with the Atlanta Falcons, and he's still getting pressed about the treatment and the sabotage of Shedeur Sanders. He got pressed so bad in this interview, he started foaming at the mouth, just blabbling, saying a bunch of nothing and a bunch of lies.
It's not my number one choice, Carl. We'll see where this goes. Now, we've had retreads or guys get a second opportunity to have great success in this league, you know, from Bill Belichick to Andy Reid, but Stefanski is going to be a hard sell to some of the fan base.
Yeah, Dede, where you at on this, man?
You know, to you guys' point, when I just posted like, hey, we got a new head coach, you know, Stefanski it is on some of my social feeds, you know, to Mike's point, man, a lot of lukewarmness about this hire.
Shedeur's rising. Stefanski's reputation is crumbling. But what happens next in Atlanta? The NFL is watching closely. Yo, let me tell you something wild that's happening right now in Atlanta. And it connects directly back to what Kevin Stefanski did to Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. So don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. This was supposed to be a fresh start. New city, new logo, new press conference smiles. That's the story they want you to believe. But let me ask you something real quick. Fresh start for who? Because in the NFL, nothing is ever really wiped clean. Not film, not reputation, and definitely not the way players are treated when the lights are on and the cameras are rolling. Atlanta didn't just hire a coach, they hired baggage. And that baggage walked into the building before the first practice even started. See, fans hear new head coach and think optimism. Think culture reset. Think everyone gets a clean slate. Players don't think like that. Players think survival. Players think careers. Players think, if this goes left, am I protected or am I the fall guy? And that's why this moment matters. Because reputation does not disappear in this league. You don't outrun it. You don't rebrand it. You carry it with you from locker room to locker room. And players, they have long memories. They don't just watch Sundays, they watch everything. Press conferences, depth charts, sideline body language. Who gets grace? Who gets buried? They saw it. They remember it. And now they're reacting. This isn't about one press conference or one interview clip going viral. This is about trust, real trust. The kind of trust that makes a player run a route full speed in week 17 when his body's screaming. The kind of trust that makes a quarterback step into a collapsing pocket knowing his coach won't hang him out to dry on Monday morning. Ask any veteran in this league and they'll tell you the same thing. Talent gets you in the door, but trust keeps you alive. And right now, that trust is already shaky in Atlanta, and the season hasn't even started. You think players don't talk? You think they don't text each other? You think guys don't FaceTime former teammates and ask, yo, what was it really like playing for him? Come on, this league is smaller than people realize. One bad situation becomes a cautionary tale real fast. That's why this goes beyond one team. This is about accountability in the NFL. For too long, coaches have been allowed to fail upward while players eat the consequences. For too long, the narrative has been new job, new chapter. Like the past didn't happen in HD on national television. But players aren't buying that anymore. They saw how situations were handled. They saw who was protected. They saw who wasn't. And when you see that, you don't forget it. You file it away, you move differently, you make business decisions. So when reports start whispering before training camp even heats up, when the locker room energy already feels off, When optimism feels forced instead of natural, that's not noise. That's not fans overreacting. That's reality leaking out early. This isn't preseason drama. This isn't Twitter nonsense. This is the beginning of something much bigger and much uglier than anyone expected. Atlanta's locker room was never going to buy in, and once you really look at the situation, it makes perfect sense. Because this roster, this isn't a group of veterans chasing one last paycheck. This is a team built on young stars, guys still writing the first real chapters of their careers. Players who need stability more than speeches. Players who need structure more than slogans. And when you're in that phase of your career, you don't gamble on vibes, you gamble on trust. Buy-in doesn't start in week 4. It doesn't start after a big win. It starts before week 1, when players decide whether they believe what they're being sold. And here's the reality. Fans don't always want to hear. Players don't just care about money. That's the lazy narrative. Yeah, contracts matter, but what matters more is career survival. One wrong situation. One bad label. One season where you're misused or blamed, and suddenly the league looks at you different. That's why certain positions feel this stuff first. Quarterbacks feel it immediately. They're the lightning rods. Every win is theirs, every loss is theirs too. Tight ends feel it because they live in the gray area, blocking, catching, doing dirty work that only gets noticed when it's missing. Team leaders feel it because they're the ones answering questions when things go sideways. And Atlanta has a lot of guys in those exact roles. So when a new coach walks in, players aren't asking, what's his scheme? They're asking, who does this benefit? Depth charts matter more than people realize. Not just where you're listed, but how it's handled. Who gets patience? Who gets yanked after one mistake? Who's allowed to play through growing pains? And when things go wrong, because they always do in the NFL, who gets protected in front of the media? Because make no mistake, every locker room has the same unspoken question. If things go bad, will the coach protect us or protect himself? That question decides everything. It decides whether a receiver finishes his route when the play's dead. It decides whether a tight end plays through pain. It decides whether a quarterback trusts the play call on 3rd and long. And players already had context coming into this situation. They didn't need to guess. They didn't need to wait and see. They'd already watched how things unfolded elsewhere. They'd already seen how narratives were shaped. They'd already seen who benefited from trust and who got scapegoated when the pressure hit. So when people say give it time, players are saying we've already seen enough. This isn't about giving someone a fair chance. This is about pattern recognition. NFL players are professionals. They study film, they study opponents, and yes, they study coaches. So when whispers start early, when body language feels off, when buy-in looks forced instead of organic, that's not coincidence. That's a locker room processing risk in real time. And based on what players saw last season, Atlanta already has its answer. The league didn't forget, and that's the problem. Because what fans called drama, players recognized as warning signs. Two completely different lenses. Fans scroll, react, argue, move on. Players watch and store it. They clock patterns. They remember who gets grace and who gets cooked. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The media tried to smooth it over, downplay it, reframe it as coach's preference or football decisions. But players live inside those decisions. They feel the weight of them on Sundays. They feel it in meetings. They feel it when one mistake costs them reps and another guy gets chances stacked on chances. Same plays, different praise. Same mistakes, different blame. Same league, same politics. That's not conspiracy talk, that's locker room reality. The NFL is a small ecosystem, way smaller than people think. Guys bounce from team to team, coaches share trees, players train together in the offseason. What happens in one building echoes into the next. And when favoritism shows up on tape, not whispers, not rumors, but clear on-field evidence, it becomes a league-wide conversation. Favoritism kills locker rooms quietly. It doesn't explode on day one. It seeps in. It creates side conversations. It turns effort into hesitation. Because when players realize the rules aren't the same for everyone, belief starts to fracture. Why grind if the outcome's already decided? Why sacrifice if the leash isn't equal? And young quarterbacks? They become collateral damage first. They don't have the political capital. They don't have the veteran cushion. They don't get the benefit of the doubt. Every missed read becomes a headline. Every interception becomes a referendum. Meanwhile, another guy runs the same play, misses the same throw, and it's chalked up as part of the process. Same reads, different narratives. Same throws, different patience. And here's the thing people underestimate. Public sabotage is worse than private conflict. Every coach and player disagrees behind closed doors. That's football. But when decisions play out publicly, when inconsistencies are obvious on national broadcasts, when explanations don't line up with what's on film, players notice immediately, because public moments shape reputations. Not just for players, for coaches too. It doesn't matter who the player is, doesn't matter the jersey, doesn't matter the market. If you see a coach bend the rules for one guy and bury another, you file that away. You don't argue about it on TV. You don't tweet about it. You remember it when free agency opens. You remember it when your contract's up. You remember it when you're deciding where your future goes. That's why this didn't disappear. That's why the league didn't forget. So when that same coach shows up in a new city, wearing a new logo, talking about culture and standards, players don't need introductions. They don't need explanations. They don't ask questions. They make plans. This is where the energy shifts, because this moment is bigger than one coach and way bigger than one team. What we're watching right now feels like a turning point. Not loud, not flashy, but real. For the first time in a long time, players aren't just reacting after the damage is done. They're moving before it happens. And that matters. This is player empowerment without press releases. No dramatic statements, no subtweets, just choices. Quiet ones, strategic ones. Players using leverage the only way this league truly understands, with their presence, their effort, and their future. And some people hate that. Because for decades, the power dynamic was simple. Coaches spoke, organizations decided, players adjusted. If you didn't like it, you were labeled difficult. Not a culture fit, easily replaced. That was the game. But the league has changed. Players are smarter now, more connected, more aware of their value and their windows. Careers are short, bodies are fragile. One bad year in the wrong environment can erase everything you worked for. So yeah, guys are choosing environments now, choosing leadership, choosing stability over slogans. And sometimes, silence says more than any quote ever could. Silence becomes a form of protest. Silence becomes clarity. Silence becomes power. You don't have to point fingers when your work speaks. You don't have to explain yourself when your reputation does the talking. Real professionalism isn't loud, it's consistent. Show up. Put the film out. Let the truth breathe. Let time do the work. That's maturity, that's growth. And here's the quiet part nobody wants to admit. The power has flipped. For the first time in a long time, it's not the player begging for belief, it's the organization begging for trust. Trust from free agents. Trust from the locker room. Trust from guys deciding where they'll spend the most important years of their careers. Because belief isn't automatic anymore, it's earned. We've seen this before, just in different forms. Think about how quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts were doubted until the organization finally committed. Once the commitment came, everything changed. The offense, the confidence, the leadership. Commitment isn't just words, it's actions, it's patience, it's protection when things aren't perfect. Players are watching for that now, closely. And when they don't see it, they move accordingly. No drama, no chaos, just decisions. That's why this situation feels different. It's not emotional, it's calculated. It's not revenge, it's awareness. The league is slowly, quietly holding people accountable, not through headlines, but through consequences. And that's powerful, because once accountability enters the picture, everything changes. culture changes, relationships change, expectations change. And that's why this moment matters. Because the NFL is evolving in real time, whether some people like it or not. This is where legacies split right here, right now. Because every situation like this eventually reaches a fork in the road. There's no middle ground, no hiding behind slogans, no more benefit of the doubt. At some point, the league decides who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. Some careers recover, some don't. Some reputations heal. Others harden into exactly what people fear they are. That's just reality. I've seen this league long enough to know that time doesn't erase patterns, it exposes them. If growth is real, it shows up. If accountability is fake, it cracks under pressure. And once the truth starts leaking, there's no stopping it. Here's my bold prediction. This moment will define more than one future. On one side, you've got players who will come out stronger, players who learn how to move smart, protect their careers, and let the film speak. Players who don't need to win press conferences because Sundays tell the whole story. When belief finally aligns with opportunity, those guys take off. We've seen it before. Once trust enters the building, confidence follows, and confidence changes everything. On the other side, there are careers that never fully recover, not because of one bad year, but because of stubbornness, because ego outlives results. Because instead of adapting, the same mistakes keep repeating just in different cities under different banners. And fans feel that too. You can sense when something's real. You can feel when accountability is missing. You can hear it in the way players talk or don't talk. Silence gets louder. Body language tells stories, and the absence of belief is impossible to hide. That's why this matters to more than just one fan base. This is about what kind of league the NFL wants to be moving forward. One where trust is earned, or one where mistakes are recycled. One where growth is rewarded, or one where patterns are ignored until it's too late. And here's the part nobody can escape. The league is watching. The players are watching. And the truth always shows up. It shows up in free agency decisions. It shows up in locker room energy. It shows up when adversity hits in week 10 and there's nowhere left to hide. Stories like this don't end quietly. They don't fade away with time. They end with receipts on tape, on records, and in careers that either rise or stall out. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe people deserve a clean slate no matter what, or do you think accountability should follow you in this league? Which side of this fork are you on? And more importantly, who do you trust moving forward? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments, debate it, push back. This community thrives on real conversation. And if you're still here, you already know what it is. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay locked in because the next chapter of this story isn't coming quietly. It never does.